Well, welcome back to another episode of the Inquisitive Mamba Podcast. This is episode 33, and today's guest, you may not know him, but he's pretty interesting. I found him on Twitter, and he's an Emmy award-winning journalist. Well, I got to introduce him, and his name is Chancellor Johnson. If you want to know all about Wisconsin sports and about the Packers and about that recent Aaron Rodgers news, this is your guy to go to. His name is Chancellor Johnson. So, Chancellor Johnson, welcome on the Inquisitive Mamba Podcast.
I appreciate you for having me, my man.
Yeah, thank you for coming on today's show. I really appreciate it.
Yes, sir.
So obviously we all know the Aaron Rodgers news broke yesterday with COVID-19 and how he's unvaccinated. So can you tell us a little bit more about that whole situation? Because I know I saw some of your tweets about it. And on August 26th, there was a press conference with him about how he was unvaccinated. And if I could look at the quote, it was, "There's guys on the team that haven't been vaccinated. I think it's a personal decision. I'm not going to judge those guys." And there was a video. So can you tell us a little bit about that video and how that all went down with him?
Yeah, for sure. I think, everything really started yesterday when news broke that Aaron Rodgers tested positive for COVID. And there's different protocols for vaccinated and unvaccinated players. So, for example, if he was to have a close contact if he was a close contact person versus being a COVID test, instead of being tested positive for COVID, he would have only had to He would have only had to test negative on 2 COVID tests to play this Sunday, which would have been against the Kansas City Chiefs, a marquee game. Everybody was excited for it. But when news broke that he also was unvaccinated, it was a surprise to everybody, because going back to that August day, as we talked about just now, that he said that when asked directly, he used the word immunized. So he tried to be funny with the words to slick there, but everybody ran with that as if, he had been vaccinated, because he was asked directly and he said yes. And as I just mentioned, I have been immunized. So it's a surprise to everybody. And if you go back, this is also interesting because this is around the same time in that August date when Kirk Cousins came out and said vocally that, hey, I'm not vaccinated. Same thing with Cam Newton at the time, which, then now he's out of the league as well, too, because, it doesn't help that, you're a quarterback, you're the leader of the team, and, petition for you to miss games if you do test positive, as Aaron Rodgers has just now. So I think there's a lot of questions as far as what's going on with Aaron Rodgers, and specifically because he basically lied about it. And,
right.
And at the same time, he's getting the praise of like, oh, hey, he's stepping up being a leader. And now it comes out that that's not the case. Now he's missing the game, and it could potentially cost the Packers, maybe playoff seeding. Right now they're 7-1. It's a tight NFC race. So we'll see how everything shakes out moving forward.
Okay, so we'll get into Jordan Love here in a little bit, but staying on the Aaron Rodgers thing. So I know I saw that he went to his own personal doctor, and everyone has the right to go to their own doctor. And hey, I'm not taking a side here. If you want to get vaccinated, go right ahead. But when you're an NFL football player, and in this instance, you're Aaron Rodgers, you're arguably one of the biggest players, and you're arguably the face of the NFL, more or less. So I think in this case, you get vaccinated, and I understand Kyrie Irving and all these guys, they have their own situations going on. At the end of the day, it's a personal decision. But you're a quarterback in the National Football League. You're making millions of dollars. Studies have shown that some people say it works, it doesn't work. It doesn't matter. You're putting your team in jeopardy here now. And I know it's the regular season. And what if this was a playoff game? And this potentially could have been this potentially could be Aaron Rodgers' last season. So when you think about it and you sit back and you go, well, man, what could have been, so I think he should have been vaccinated, and he should have told the truth more or less, because now you're putting all these other players in jeopardy. Devontae Adams tested positive last week, and, Lazard was a close contact, and yeah, it's COVID, it spreads. But in this case, I think, he should have, got vaccinated. And like I said, if you want to go to your doctor, go right ahead. But I don't understand the homeopathic, situation with going to your doctor. And, I'm not a scientist or, a doctor, nor have any part of the CDC, but I just think if you're going to go through all that trouble, just go get the shot. It doesn't, So what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think for me, the biggest thing is not so much that he's unvaccinated, though I do agree, as the leader of the football team, not just the leader of the Packers, but as you just mentioned, one of the faces of the NFL, right?
Right.
To not be vaccinated, and people are looking at you as a leader. So it is a personal choice, but we both know that, you can test positive even with a COVID test. To me, it is the thing that he did a lot. And one thing that I've noticed about Aaron Rodgers, covering for my 2 years of covering him, he's very calculated. So he's, and we also know, going back to, his days of Jeopardy and things like that, he's a smart guy. So he knew exactly what he was doing. And you are putting your team at risk. And to me, it's like, okay, well, he has a number of questions as far as, okay, well, are you going to get vaccinated moving forward as well, too? Because as you just mentioned, say this is a playoff game. And this, we've kind of built this up as potentially being the last dance. And the Packers have a real shot. They're an NFC contender. They're sitting at 7-1 right now in the NFC, the best record. They own the tiebreaker over the Arizona Cardinals. And so, they could have home playoff games, throughout up into the Super Bowl if they get to that point. And we're talking about a team that just lost back-to-back NFC championship games. And so, he is putting himself at risk. And moving forward, as I just mentioned, the protocols are different. So, if maybe in the future, if he does test positive, there could be a situation if he is vaccinated to where he just needs to test positive twice versus the 10-day rule that, if, as an unvaccinated person, you have to deal with once you get to the playoff, to the playoff race and so on. So, it is really interesting to see how it plays out. Unfortunately, Wednesday was supposed to be the day that we get the chance to talk to Rodgers. That didn't happen because of his positive COVID test, and we probably won't be able to hear from him for at least 2 weeks, since the earliest he'll be able to return to the building is the Saturday before their Seahawks game next week. So be a couple of weeks, but he definitely has a lot of questions to answer moving forward.
Well, if you ask me, you got the Chiefs this week, and everyone's been wanting to see Mahomes versus Rodgers. Everyone says, Mahomes, Rodgers, and Brady's right there as well too. But I thought it would have been a really good game. But now we turn our attention to Jordan Love, and what has been the mood around the Packers organization and locker room with Jordan Love starting this Sunday.
For sure. I think one of the silver linings of this, if there is one, of this kind of Aaron Rodgers debacle, is that the Packers will finally get a chance to get a really good look at their former first-round draft pick, Jordan Love. He hasn't seen any regular season snaps. If you go back to last year in his rookie season, there was no preseason back then. There was, it was a shortened mini camp and things of that nature. And so this preseason is the first time they actually got a chance to really see any of him in game action, suiting up, taking on, an opponent in an opposing defense. So I'm excited to see what happens. But at the same time, I was talking about this yesterday. They're facing a Chiefs team that, is susceptible on defense. One of my favorite quotes that I saw on Twitter yesterday was, the Packers have 5 days to tell Jordan Love who Daniel Sorensen is, because he's not very good as a defensive back. So just target him every single time down the field. But the good thing for Jordan Love is the Packers are expecting Devontae Adams back actually today at practice. And so he can make any quarterback look better on the field. In my opinion, I think he's the best wide receiver in the league. And so he didn't have that opportunity to play with him during this preseason. He also has Randall Cobb. They should have return of Alan Lazard. But I would not be surprised to see Matt LaFleur and this Packers offense go to Kansas City and run the ball heavily. They have they have a really good running back combo in AJ Dillon and Aaron Jones, and they feasted last week on the road against Arizona. I don't expect Matt LaFleur to throw Jordan Love to the wolves, but I expect them to run the ball a lot, pound, and get the run game going, especially considering just in general, you probably want to keep that other offense off the field with Patrick Mahomes and, Tyreek Hill, Travis Kelce, and so on. So I expect to see a lot of the running game. But what I will say is, talking to Matt LaFleur yesterday in the press conference, he was excited to finally get a chance to get a really good look at their potential heir to Aaron Rodgers' throne in Jordan Love.
Yeah, so obviously, Jordan Love, I don't think he'll get thrown into the thrown to the fire. But the one thing I will say, and I think this is, I don't consider a hot take, but I will say that Jordan Love, I think the main thing they're going to take away from this game coming up Sunday is third down. If you watch the Giants and the Chiefs game, the Giants couldn't get off the field. The Chiefs couldn't stop them on third down. And there wasn't a lot of 3rd and 7s, 3rd and 8s, but if you put it 3rd and 2 between 3rd and 4, I expect a lot of screens and a lot of, stuff out of the backfield to Aaron Jones, because AJ Dillon is, hard-nosed runner. He's not a every down back yet. He's a good 3rd and 1 guy. 2nd and 4. But Aaron Jones is the guy out of the backfield if you're going to throw a slant or a wheel or, something to the flats. So I expect it to be a good game. I don't think it'll be a blowout because I think the Packers are, I don't think they're deep at every position and they're, but I think it'll be a good game. And I'm looking forward to watching it. So even though no Rodgers, maybe we'll see a preview of the Jordan Love era in Green Bay.
I think the biggest loser out of everyone this week is State Farm. Everybody wanted to see the State Farm Bowl between Aaron Rodgers and Patrick Mahomes. But yeah, it should definitely be a good one. And once again, we've seen some recent upsets. Or you can look at last week with the Jets against a really good Bengals team, upsetting them with their backup quarterback, and then last week the Giants on the road, it almost isn't good enough, but they played the Chiefs fairly well. So what I will say is this Packers is a very well-coached team. I think they'll have a pretty good game plan for Jordan Love, and we'll see how he reacts in his first start.
I also saw the Chiefs. I was reading the Chiefs said they're not going to really change their game plan much, but from Rodgers to Love, they expect, a lot of similar plays they'll throw at them. I think that's, fair. I think if you're going to watch watching the Chiefs in the Packers game, you watch that Cardinals and Packers film. I think, it'll be pretty similar. I don't think you'll see much difference. And I don't think LaFleur will throw him to the wolves. I think, if he needs to make that, third down, maybe he will, maybe he won't, but it'll be an interesting game. I'm not saying he's going to go out and throw for 404 touchdowns, but I don't think he's going to completely stink it up. The offensive line isn't too bad. And when are they getting Bakhtiari back?
So that's the thing. David Bakhtiari could potentially make his season debut this Sunday against the Chiefs. He's been back and practicing. And the Packers offensive line, when you have a guy like David Bakhtiari, who, in my opinion, is one of the at least top 3 offensive linemen in the league at left tackle. They're a very solid offensive line. And going back to your point as far as what the offensive game plan is, one thing about Matt LaFleur, regardless of if it's Aaron Rodgers or potentially Jordan Love, they're going to run the ball. And one thing they really like to do is to mirror their passing game to their running game. So it begins with Aaron Jones and AJ Dillon. So they're going to try to get them going. And then if they run the ball successfully, that opens up the play action. And then of course number 17, he's going to find a way to get open. He usually does every single game, and Devontae Adams. So we'll see what happens against a pretty successful Kansas City Chiefs defense.
I think LaFleur is going to play it smart. I think he's a good coach. Obviously, he's had Aaron Rodgers now for the past few seasons, and he is the youngest coach, I think, to amass 35 wins, 30 something wins around there. I don't know the exact number, but I'm sure you do. But I think it'll be a good game. And I see it being a good one. So moving on, I think we've talked enough about Jordan Love and Mahomes. So this is the second time we've been snubbed of Rodgers versus Mahomes. So do you think we're going to see a Rodgers versus Mahomes before Rodgers hangs it up? Because Mahomes still got a long way to go.
I'm not for sure. I wouldn't be surprised if there's not a rematch this year. I think if you look at what's going on in the NFC, it's a tough climb. The Packers could reach the Super Bowl, but look how loaded the NFC is. You got the Cardinals, you have Tampa Bay, now Los Angeles. They just made another move that already adds to a darn good Rams defense in Von Miller. So I think it's a possibility that the Packers could come out of the NFC. I think getting home field advantage and playing at Lambeau in those late, in early January, it's always a tough place to play. I think that would go a long way for them. And then on the other side with the AFC, the Chiefs defense, the Chiefs team in general scares me, not in a good way. As far as looking at their defense with Patrick Mahomes, it seems like for a Patrick Mahomes standard, he's taking a step back this year. He's a little bit more turnover prone, and at the same time, the defense isn't getting it done. So I think I would be shocked if both teams happen to meet in this, in the Super Bowl. And obviously, with the way scheduling works out in the NFL, who knows the next time the Packers and the Chiefs play, if Aaron Rodgers decides to return next year, or if he goes elsewhere. There's also a possibility we've heard, in the past, if we're getting in hypotheticals that if Aaron Rodgers moves on, Denver was a place that he could go to. Then we could see Patrick Mahomes and Aaron Rodgers 2 times a year. But until that happens, this, we might not get that Rodgers versus Mahomes football game.
Yeah. Okay. So obviously, I think everyone knows now, everyone has Twitter, but Henry Ruggs, the whole situation there. So have you heard anything about that more, speaking with other people or just, going through Twitter or reporters from other teams that have been, covering Ruggs or anything around the NFL that, some people may not know about, because it looks like a pretty tragic situation. Obviously, he was involved, in a DUI, and he, killed somebody, and it's, it's a pretty tragic incident. He's only 22 years old. He's a year younger than I am. And I know you're probably not too much older than that either.
For sure. Yeah.
So it's crazy.
Definitely a tragic situation. I don't have any new breaking news, but what I will share is one of my good buddies, Tashawn Reed, he actually covers the Raiders for the Athletic. And so, we were talking about it, a very tragic situation, and this just kind of adds to what's already been a bumpy year for the Raiders off of the field. I mean, on the field, they're actually, on top of the AFC West, or
surprisingly they are.
They've actually had a pretty solid year, but obviously you go back to what happened with John Gruden. You lose your head coach in the middle of the football season, and now you lose your former first-round pick in Henry Ruggs, and he was expected to do a lot of great things, what he added to this offense. But that's on the football element, and we definitely can't discount what happened off of the field. It's a very tragic situation, and we're talking about looking at the details as more details are coming out. It's very unfortunate, not only from the DUI to just speeding, at that rate of speeding, and then ultimately killing a young lady that is somebody's daughter, somebody's friend, and potentially maybe even a mother. So tragic situation all the way around. And I thought what was interesting was kind of what's been the fallout from that, hearing Derek Carr's words. And obviously, like, Henry Ruggs is, he has to deal with the consequences. Those aren't going anywhere. But to hear the words from Derek Carr about being there for him, not only as an ex-teammate, but just as a friend, because once again, he's going to have to deal with those consequences, and everybody is railing on him, and, they care about Henry Ruggs as a person, and, having that compassion for him, because, he's going to have to deal with whatever moving forward. So just all around tragic situation. It's crazy because I was talking with somebody who was a Browns reporter. You would think an Odell Beckham and Baker Mayfield news would be at the top of, on a Wednesday would be at the top of the NFL news. That took bronze behind, both Henry Ruggs situation and what's going on with Aaron Rodgers. So once again, going back to Henry Ruggs, a very tragic situation.
There's always something going on in the NFL, but when you're just 22 years old and you have life by the hands, you have everything for you. And my dad said this to me last night. He said, life can be taken from you like that in a second. Everything can just change for you in the moment. And, and I don't excuse what he did. And, obviously, the whole situation is just, you could have Ubered, man. It's like, you're 22 years old. You've got millions and millions of dollars in the bank. Why do you have to go do that and put yourself at risk? Yeah, you're playing he was playing Top Golf, that night before at midnight, and he texted Derek Carr, and then the next morning you wake up. Dude, you have so much money. And it's not even about the money. It's just the common sense. Just take an Uber, man. You can leave your Corvette, your $80,000 Corvette, and pick it up the next morning. And I wish more and more athletes would listen and take this as an example, as a life lesson learned, that it can be taken from you in seconds. Not everybody gets the opportunity like Josh Gordon, and he smoked dope until his brain is fried. And, he's come back 10 times. But you got to think, man, like, most people would kill for your job, your dream. You're a professional athlete. At the end of the day, it's a job. You wear that jersey, it's a job. Yeah. It's just, I can't put it into words. And I feel for the kid. I really do. But like you said, he has to face the consequences, and you just simply don't do that. Okay. Maybe you had a beer or two. Yeah. Okay, fine. Everybody drinks. Everyone has a good time, but use your head, man. You're a national football. You're an NFL player. You play for a big organization. It doesn't, you just don't do that. So that's where I'm going to close it off there. And Ruggs isn't going to listen to this podcast, and it doesn't matter. I just want other people to understand and know, if you're an athlete out there, use your head before you even think, before you do. It's simply, I'm looking right into the camera, think before you do. And Chancellor probably can agree with me. It's just, you just don't do that. Absolutely. So anyways, moving on, Odell drama. You just briefly brought up that, and we thought Odell would be the news of the week, right? Well, Odell's drama, second straight day missing practice. So is he going to get released, or what's the deal here?
Based off some reports, I have seen that he is going to get released. That's according to multiple reports eventually. To me, it doesn't make sense because you're just coming off the trade deadline and you could have got something for him. And so ultimately, if they do go that route and release him, now what, right? Now,
Right.
what does that actually do to the team? Well, OBJ hasn't been very productive, and then you can get into whose fault is that? Is that Baker's or is that OBJ's fault? But to me, I find it interesting. The Browns have sent him home now when we record this podcast, 2 days in a row from practice. They excused him. OBJ showed up to work. He was ready to go. To me, it doesn't make sense to, in my opinion, coddle a guy in Baker Mayfield who really hasn't shown to be good enough to get away with this. Now, I understand, that is your franchise quarterback. But to me, it's like it is levels. And Baker Mayfield, to me, hasn't shown, the ability to, we'll take, our former superstar wide receiver and just sit him at home. I think you go back and look at that 11-minute video that OBJ's father released. He was open on a lot of those routes, and Baker Mayfield missed him. And so, regardless of how this plays out, if they do ultimately release him, I would love to see OBJ go to a spot where they do have a good quarterback. In his past, in his past 2 stops, in with the Browns with Baker Mayfield, solid at best, and then before that, Eli Manning on the back end of his career. I'd love to see him go with somebody who can really get to a guy who's open a lot of the time. So we'll see how ultimately plays out, but I don't suspect that we'll see Odell Beckham Jr. in a Browns uniform again.
So I got the whole Odell thing drives me absolutely crazy because the Browns knew that when they took on this guy and they took on this contract, it was going to be some superstar stardom thing, or, Cleveland's back, or all this stuff, Johnny Manziel, LeBron, Baker, Odell now, right? So it's a marriage, right? It's a couple, it's a relationship. There have been in a 3-year relationship now. So it either ends good or bad. That's how it works, right? So now you think about it. You owe him all this money and you were going to trade him, right? The Browns tried to trade him. I'm guessing that reports haven't come out yet. It'll probably, later come out for a 3rd or a 4th and they couldn't do it. So now you think to yourself, what's this guy really worth? Because at one point in the league, he was a top 5 wide receiver. And then everyone thought, oh, he's going to come back from his ACL injury this past season and he's going to light it up with Baker. It hasn't been the case. He hasn't even he's got 0 touchdowns on the season. He hasn't even recorded a 100-yard game. So I just think that I'm not saying his career is done. And I saw tweets from John Morant and LeBron, free OBJ. Okay, free him. Go to New England or go to Tampa or wherever you're going to go. But he's a locker room problem, man. He's got issues off the field and he's proven it, and he's injury prone now. So, I mean, hey, maybe Green Bay will take him, but Rodgers is the type of guy that could go out there and go, yeah, I really want that guy. I want that guy. Or maybe, he's not like Brady where he's heavily recruiting a guy. So, hey, take him, I guess, right? But
what I will say to that,
problem. Go ahead.
What I will say to that is actually, you'd be surprised. Aaron Rodgers is like that, but just kind of underneath the table. Mm-hmm. It's more so, and going back to kind of the issues they had over the offseason, it's more so on the office to bring them in, because that was Aaron Rodgers' frustration. Is he's out there recruiting a lot of these guys, and and because they actually talked about that. Hey, you look at what Tom Brady's doing in Tampa Bay, and he was doing that on the table, but management, and here the general manager Brian Gutekunst, he wasn't bringing them in. That's actually changed this year. The Packers just signed Whitney Merciless, they got him off of waivers. They tried to bring in Jalen Smith. That didn't work out. They actually cut him. But they actually tried to make moves. I know there were talks that they were busy at the trade deadline as well too, after their tight end Robert Tonyan was lost for the year due to an ACL injury. Nothing ever came out of that, but this is actually the most active that I've seen Green Bay. I know previously there was talks about maybe Odell Beckham potentially coming, but that was on a rumor mill, and part of that, the issue with that was like more so the money in the contract. The Packers just don't have a lot of cap room there, but if he's cut, that could potentially be changed, and maybe something could be worked out that way. But like I said, he hasn't been able to play kind of with a star quarterback yet. And as you just mentioned, he has been banged up, but he's still getting open, and so I think there's still something there. Is he the same top 5 wide receiver? I'd say absolutely not. But I think he can definitely help any team. If you brought brought a guy like Odell Beckham Jr. to Green Bay and you line them up across from Devontae Adams and Randall Cobb, and you have a quarterback like Aaron Rodgers. I'm just saying hypothetically, right? That's a dangerous offense on top of the running game with Aaron Jones as well too. So I think he definitely has something left there. It's just a matter of if he's able to show that with a decent quarterback.
I saw I was tweeting with some of my friends yesterday in our group chat, and I was thinking, is he gonna, I'm thinking about where he's gonna go, because obviously I'm not an NFL GM, or I don't know. Obviously, I'm just throwing out predictions or hypotheticals. Tampa, no, because they've got too many wide receivers. I don't think they would do it, but I could be wrong. New England, no, because they don't have the cap space and they're not ready yet there. Maybe maybe Bill would make a splash, but I don't see it. Rams, no, I mean, maybe just because it's Hollywood and they can really get anyone they want. It seems like in the past few years. Niners, no, they were linked to him, but last year they're a mess. Green Bay, potentially, yes. And then I boil it down to the Ravens and the Bengals. The reason why I say the Bengals is because he's familiar with Jamar Chase and LSU and the LSU connection and Joe Burrow, but that would then maybe the Ravens, but I don't know. I mean, I don't really know. I guess maybe Green Bay would be his best suitor if you think about it, right? I don't other than that, I don't really know.
Right. As far as on paper, it would be a good look, but how would that actually happen as far as, once again, going back to the cap space, it's another thing. But I wouldn't be mad at seeing him in a Ravens uniform. Hollywood Brown's taking that next step this year, but to have a guy like Odell Beckham Jr. as well on that team, I think that could go a long way for a Ravens team that has shown to be explosive, obviously with Lamar Jackson, with his ability to use his legs. And also, I think he's also taken another step with his arm as well. But we'll see. First things first, we'll see if the Browns release him or if they are able to ultimately mend that bridge. But listening to Baker Mayfield yesterday, he definitely wasn't happy with the way things played out over the past 48 hours.
I agree with you. So moving on from Odell, I guess we'll find out here in the next few short weeks, as the NFL moves fast, if he's going to be released or not. So the Aaron Rodgers thing, back to that real quick. Do you think the media is trying to make something more out of it than it really is with the whole unvaccinated thing and the whole, press conference? Or do you think like it's good that they brought it to light and he is obviously, one of the, big faces of the NFL? So lastly about that part of Rodgers.
Yeah. So I definitely don't think so, because if Aaron Rodgers tests positive for COVID and he's vaccinated, well, at worst, we don't see a Rodgers versus Mahomes, Packers versus Chiefs matchup on Sunday. He's back next week.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
right.
I think what the biggest thing that's come out of it is because when you go back, he was asked directly, and once again, he pretty much lied about it. And then on top of that, was he violating COVID protocols as well? Because to the media and to most fans, we were operating as if Aaron Rodgers was vaccinated. Now, the Packers, according to multiple reports, said that, hey, they've always known he's been unvaccinated, but how were they complicit in that? Because part of the protocols is like a guy like Alan Lazard. Alan Lazard is unvaccinated. We haven't seen Alan Lazard in a press conference because all of his press conferences had to be on Zoom because that's COVID protocols. You're not allowed to talk to the media that way. And so Aaron Rodgers, he's unmasked indoors talking to reporters. That means he would be violating COVID protocols. And so there's some other fallout to that, not just the fact that he lied, but some other things that, like, was he following COVID protocols this whole time? And that's on the NFL to investigate, and potentially he might have to face some consequences. I don't, I've seen some wild stuff on Twitter. Twitter is Twitter, he should be suspended. The NFL is it's a bottom line league as far as what it does for their money, but they could ultimately potentially fine Aaron Rodgers for things of the nature. It could be a hefty fine as well too for every violation, for every COVID violation, for every COVID protocol that he violated. So I think the bigger story is not the fact that he tested positive for COVID, it's the fact that he lied, and what's the follow-up from that as far as were there any violations of protocols.
And the last thing about the Rodgers thing is if you were to fine Rodgers or suspend him, then you'd have to suspend everyone else who, tested positive and was unvaccinated. So you can't, that's a wishy-washy type game. So briefly about, back to Kansas City and Green Bay real quick. Do you think there's any chance Green Bay could upset Kansas City?
I think there's a chance. The Packers would have to have I think the Packers will have a very good game plan. I think the formula is, especially with the way the Chiefs have been turning the ball over. If the Packers can get stops and the run game can get going to where the Packers offense can keep Kansas City's offense off the field, I think there's a chance. I think Jordan Love, he's a former first round pick for a reason. They have high expectations for him. This is not a third round, fourth round pick that they just want to get a look for. He is supposed to be the future of this franchise. So there's high expectations coming in. The Packers, they're expecting to win this game, as far as they're concerned. People didn't think the Packers would be able to go on the road shorthanded and beat the Chiefs. Now, obviously, Aaron Rodgers was still quarterback for them there, but they beat a really good really good Cardinals team, on the road last week, and we'll see if they can do it again on the road this time around with the Chiefs.
Yeah, no, like I said, I'm going to go back. I think it's a good game. The last thing I will say about it, I'm going to look right into the camera. I expect Andy Reid and their defensive coordinator, Steve Spagnuolo, to send a lot of blitzes to Jordan Love with the addition of Melvin Ingram. I'm not saying Melvin Ingram is, Myles Garrett or Joey Bosa, but he was solid in, San Diego and LA when he was there. Didn't really get a shot in Pittsburgh. That was a whole, drama fest there. Not a whole lot of media on that, but I expect Kansas City to throw a lot of blitzes at Jordan Love that he hasn't seen, with Frank Clark and Melvin Ingram coming off both edges, and a lot of blitzes, I think. And if he can pick up those blitzes, he'll have a successful day. Alrighty, so that's it for the Packers and the Chiefs. Moving on to my segment is the 5 questions I do for every guest on the show. Here we are. So what's a typical workday like for you?
For me, man, it's usually pretty busy. I start off in the morning covering a Packers practice, including a press conference, and then it's go time. I pretty much turn it, and for me, I'm an MMJ, so I shoot, edit, write all my own stuff, get ready for the newscast. And so the thing about the Packers, every day is different with them. You never know what you're going to get, especially over the past couple of weeks from with Devontae Adams out to now Aaron Rodgers. And then even on game days, one thing that I do love about covering the Packers, they always make it interesting. You go back to earlier this year with the on the road against the 49ers, 37 seconds left, Aaron Rodgers came back. Then you go to Cincinnati. Yep, you go to Cincinnati with one of the wackiest games I've ever seen, with them on the road, and they get it done late in overtime. And then recently on Thursday with the Packers and the Cardinals, that late game interception by Dunbar to get it done as well too. So it's been fun. No day is the same here in Titletown.
Rasul Douglas was actually the one who intercepted that pass because he was on the Cardinals and the Packers picked him up. So my second question for you is, what's the most challenging thing about your job?
That's a good question. For me, challenging is pretty much just getting the stuff done because it's tight deadlines and things break fast here. Things are always moving, but I enjoy it. That's the beauty of it, man. Like, I would say I'm blessed to have the opportunity. Even going back to last year, I remember when COVID hit. Obviously, it was a tough time for everyone. And, the games were different. Lambeau Field wasn't packed out, but I remember walking into the Packers versus Falcons game on Monday Night Football and having an opportunity to go and cover that. I'm like, man, like, this is awesome. I get to talk about sports, even here with you, man, and get paid for it. It's an awesome opportunity. You can't really beat it.
Alrighty. So my third question is, what's been the most fulfilling or rewarding aspect of your career so far?
I would definitely say it's the storytelling. Covering the Packers is awesome. I love reporting and getting a chance to cover practice and games, but getting out in the community and telling different stories. I think here in Green Bay, the fans are incredible, but just the human interest stories. I had one recently about a swim coach who sent a couple kids to the Olympics, who at the same time of coaching these kids, she's raising 2 special needs kids. That's the stuff that means a lot to me and the things I take pride in. So I'll probably say the storytelling and getting out in the community.
Okay, so what's the best thing about your job?
Covering the Packers, without a doubt. I think the Packers have the best fan base in the league. They're a wild bunch, and obviously there's some other good ones, Cowboys, the Raiders, but I think they're lunatics, man, to be able to sit in Lambeau Field and in literally negative degree weather and be loud the entire time. You just don't get that around the league. But they're a very nice group as well too. So I definitely say getting to cover this rabid fan base.
Okay, so if you could interview any sports athlete in the world, Who would it be? Former or current?
Former or current? You know what? I actually love to do one with Colin Kaepernick. I think we haven't the most recent. The most recent we've heard from him is this documentary, but I think there's a lot of questions about just the way his tail end of his career played out that we haven't seen on him. And so, if first of all, to get that, I'll be breaking some news there just as a journalist. You know what I mean? But I think there's a lot of questions, that I think a lot of people have of him, and I think that's one of the critiques as well too. That towards the tail end of his career, we just didn't get a chance to really hear from him. There was, there'd be messages here and there, but after he was out of the league, you just didn't hear a ton from him. So to have an opportunity to sit down and talk with him, that would be an awesome opportunity.
Regardless of what people think of him,
Sure.
he's going down in history books forever. So
100%.
that's one thing. Even if people remember his crappy career or his Super Bowl with against the Ravens with Harbaugh, and he's a Utah guy. Who knows? I mean, he's definitely going down in the books for sure. And there'll be more to come for him from sure. There will be more to come of him in the near future. The Netflix documentary, some stuff on ESPN. But it's interesting. As a journalist, it's always cool to hear what people have to say. So I completely agree with you for that. Well, that's a wrap up. That does it for us today on the Inquisitive Mamba Podcast. I want to say thank you so much for coming on, Chancellor Johnson. And if you guys don't know who Chancellor Johnson is, he's a sports reporter. He's got all the Packers news, and he's working daily to get you guys all your Packers news. And he's going to be rocking and rolling for this Chiefs Packers game this Sunday. Twitter is Chancellor TV. I thought it was Chancellor Johnson TV, but it's Chancellor TV at Chancellor TV. Make sure to shoot him a follow for all your Packers news. And as Chancellor would say, go Pack, go.
There you go.
Thank you for coming on, and make sure to follow us on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. We are trying to produce as much content as we can for you guys. We're once a week. As Chancellor Johnson said, he's a one-man show. I'm a one-man show. So we're doing our best out here. And we want to say thank you for tuning in. It's on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. We'll see you next time.